how can we exist as our truest selves yet in the environments, in the structures, in the societies, within the systems that conditioned us to be this shadow self. So let's get into it. Hi, my friends. Perspective here. Constructs, the mental structure. They are the things that fill up the bucket. So the bucket is filled up with all of these things. Now, when you experience something, your brain is not experiencing the thing as it is most of the times. And especially as you again move from being in that unconscious state, which is the me version, which is the version of self that is heavily in the shadow, which is the ego self, as you want to call it. But it's unconscious because it just took all of this conditioning and doesn't even know it's perpetrating actions on autopilot. So, this is what I mean with the brain. You're in an experience, and your brain doesn't actually experience the thing because guess what? That experience goes through a filter being your theme of consciousness, a filter being your belief systems, a filter being the bucket that has all the cultural ideologies, truths, what have you, concepts, filter being your mental construct. So, whatever you're experiencing goes through that, and you respond to that interaction based off of that process. So now you see that thing, but you're not seeing the thing for what it actually is. If you're on the unconscious side of things, that's what I'm talking about. You're not really seeing the thing for what it actually is. You're seeing it for what is being processed in your head as, which again is an amalgamation of all of these things that we've listed out prior. If we're at this point in a journey when we realize that whenever we come in contact with experiences, there is that tendency for us to not actually experience the thing for what it is, but to experience it for how we see it, how we perceive it. That's where perception comes in. Now, as we go through this journey, as we do the inner work, as we heal the wounded sides of us, we become less and less of that unconscious version of self and we start to become more conscious, more aware. That's the I, that's the awareness behind even the thoughts that you have. Because the I knows, the true self knows that all that bucket of information, all those insights, all that ideology, truth, all of that are an amalgamation of other people's POVs on life, other people's truths, and some of them your own experience. But then if you think about it, if your experience of life is going through a certain filter that comprises of other people's experiences and truths, then in a way, is that truly your own direct experience with the thing? That part. If you remember our transition, so your belief systems give rise to your thought. Your belief system combines all of those thoughts, all of those stories that are related to you, depending on the context, right? So now there are certain triggers, there are certain themes of consciousness. So, say for instance, rejection is a theme of consciousness. Within the realm of rejection, your mind knows that there are certain feelings, the emotions that come up. There are certain actions, that's how someone might behave towards you, that you would associate with. So these are the sensory inputs, the sensory signals that you take in. Your brain has mapped that to a certain response, to a certain feeling. It has mapped all the things it's going to see in that experience. So that is why when you observe a certain experience that resembles a traumatic experience, your brain has taken note of, okay, oh, this is the environment, this is how it looks like, this is how it feels like, the emotions, this is how it smells like, even, right? Your brain takes all of that information, all of that signal, and then maps it in the middle of processing. It maps it. So this environment, this situation, this role, this identity, this context also goes with this thought, this feeling, this. So when you think about the traumatic experience, all of those things are mapped. All of those things your brain connects with, it associates. So in terms of data storage, right? You can think about it like a dictionary. So a dictionary has key and value. So then there's a mapping. So whenever rejection is triggered, rejection comes with thoughts which make up the belief system. Rejection comes with the emotions, which is shame. Rejection comes with the actions. That's how you choose to react based on that. How do you choose to protect yourself in that case? How do you show up in the world? Now all of these things are mapped, and now your brain, upon triggering, could bring up any of those, of that information that is associated with that. I mentioned the environment and the society, right? And the largest environment that we have would be the world. But the environment could be the world, it could be the smaller environments like a society, it could be an organization, it could be a family, it could be a group that you're in, maybe like a social group. It could range across those. So it doesn't have to be that you're there physically. And that's why virtual reality is virtual reality, right? That's why you can have all of these groups, society, organizations. You guys can interact via virtual, like via your phone. It doesn't mean that, that is a physical environment, but it is an environment. And just as much as you have a virtual environment, you also have a mental environment. And that's where your memory comes in. Because everything that you remember is your mind that brings all of these realities together. Okay, I'm here talking to my phone, but I am talking to my phone as if I am talking to you, because I am talking to you, right? So in my head, I am talking to you. I am not talking to my phone. But physically, in my reality, I am talking to my phone. I am here by myself. But the moment I think about one of my friends, the moment I think about my partner, my brain suddenly associates that with all of the things. So the emotion that is going to come up for me, the thoughts that is going to come up for me, because again, my thought, I think about that person, so that's my thought, right? The emotion that's going to come up, the way I might even act out, because I'm thinking about that person. Is the person here physically? No. But are my physical actions right now as a resultant effect of thinking about that person, and whatever the thought of that person means to me, it becomes the cause of that. So no, the person is not actually here. But could it be that the person is here because the thought of the person exists? Yes. And that is the power of our minds. So when I say environment, it doesn't even have to be that these people are existing in the physical capacity, because something has existed in the physical capacity to a degree. Your mind creates an environment. And when you have a memory of somebody, even though the person is not there for real, you could have emotions that come up. as if the person were actually there. So, all that to say, within the construct of these societies, environments, they also create their own mental parallel for us. And sometimes they don't have to physically exist, but they're in your mind. And we know how we've established, just as much as your outward reality creates your inner space based off of, like we had said, the wounding that was passed on to us from our physical reality, that's the same way that your inner space then determines your outer space. And, you know, as above, so below, as it is in heaven, so it is on earth. It goes both ways. And we see this play out across life. That's something I want you to ponder on too. As above, so below. Going forward, in your experiences, just try to see these things for yourself. As above, so below. What does that even mean? When concepts are thrown out there, or when you see something like, you just, see an ideology, right? It's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to observe it play out in your own life. Try it out and observe it play out in your own life. And that's again what I would hope that you do, what I would hope that you take away from everything that I say. Don't take my word for it. Mm-mm. We are two different people. Please don't take my word for it. But whatever I say, take it as a suggestion and try it out in your own life and see how it plays out. So, as above, so below is such a fundamental core truth for me, because I have seen it play out so many ways. So yeah, whenever I say this, I'm just gonna point it out. That's something I'm saying. So yeah, you go try it out for yourself. But we see how, just as much as it's happening on the outward physical level, it's also happening on the mental level as well. And these are the different levels of reality that we exist in. Because just as much as our physical environment exists, there is a world in our mental space. That's where you talk about imagination, right? Things that don't actually exist, things that you can't hold, but you feel it, you sense it, you see it in your head, you see the vision. You see the vision. Is the vision real in this existing reality that we're in? No, but it can be real. The Bible verse that says, I am in the world, but I am not of the world. I believe that's what it says. It reminds me of that, because when you go through this, you are in the world, you exist in the world, but you don't move like the world moves. So, how do you exist in your fullest capacity if the world is moving in a completely different direction and you're moving in the other direction? Two things when it comes to society and how it relates to this context. First thing being, from my observation, from my learnings, is the roles that we play. Mm? So, understanding that the older version of self, that version that has gone through this wounded phase and all of that, gone through that shadow phase, was connected to other people, right? Again, the environment you find yourself, the people, hurt people, people pass on the hurt as well as they pass on the healing. So, people, you are connected to people, and it's all connected, right? That's what we speak about here. How, having gone on this journey, just as your environment, the people in your environment pass the hurt onto you, you're able to pass that light back on to the environment and influence the environment around you. The same way that I spoke about being connected to God and being connected to the world as well. The reason I reiterate these things is because there is that connection, and the connection is very paramount. It's the beginning of this story, right? If we look at it like a story, there is that connection, and we're always going to circle around that connection. So in a society, in the environment we find ourselves, We're connected to people, friends, family, social groups, friend groups, inner circles, outer circles, organizations. All of these highlight a connection to people. And as you're connected to people, you have to remember that these connections existed in a capacity with the version of yourself that you're now letting go of. These connections may not necessarily be going on that journey with you because, again, it is a personal journey. So, as much as you want to go on this journey for yourself, you cannot force anyone to go on this journey. So, there is that tendency that, again, the smaller societies are still functioning in this capacity. When I say in this capacity, I mean in the wounding. As a member that is connected to other members within that society, everyone has their roles to play. Mm-hmm. In that group, that environment, within that connection, this is who they know you as. This is the identity that you occupy. This is the role that you have to fulfill. These are your responsibilities as this member or as this friend or as that, whatever it may be.